Welcome to the Lucentlands podcast. We have identified the need for a platform where industry leaders and innovators in the agricultural sector can share their stories and inspire others. We hope you enjoy listening to this as much as we enjoyed speaking to these people. Welcome.
You know, a TV interview, you've got maximum 3 or 4 minutes to say your piece. But I think right now the issues are bigger than 3 or 4 minutes.
But we don't want to talk about issues, I think.
Let's talk about something exciting.
There's enough issues for people to worry about.
Yeah.
And people, when a lot of people listen to one of these things and the people we talk to, they kind of expect that you talk about issues.
Yeah.
But all the issues are the same with everybody, so it's going to be a repetitive thing.
Yeah. I mean, we had a meeting this morning with Resolve Communication, Brent and myself. They obviously assisted us to get over the line or to get the whole business with a strike. So, yeah, I mean, but to try and get the right level of communication that raises the profile and creates the urgency, and instead of just like banging on the drum and saying you must, you know, trying to get the balance.
You're talking about with government?
With government in particular, to try and get the, you know, not to make it noisy, but when that's mine, yeah. When the risk for inaction becomes too much for them, and that's the bit that no sugar for me, thanks, but I will have some milk.
One of the things we are also wanting to do, we're actually wanting to go and speak to people in government and hear what has been done, what is happening. So maybe you must also tell us who we should speak to.
Well, I mean, I think Minister BerryZA is going to do her best, but you have to see it within the wider context of the whole government function. And what is very clear in my mind is that there's nowhere near the level of accountability when it comes to trade and market access, you know, the kind of facilitation for economic growth. You know, there's more of a lot of talk shopping, but no real accountability. And I mean, we know that accountability is an issue in South Africa, full stop. But at the trade level, there's just not proper accountability. And I mean, even if you look at the Far East, which is the most critical market for us to develop, how many agricultural trade attaches do we have in the Far East? Do you know?
No, please tell us. One, covering the whole of the Far East.
That's it.
And they're based where?
I think they are now based only just deployed to China. But the Far East is not China. There's a multitude of countries there, and they are by no means the same. And I mean, I've just come back from a trade delegation visit to Hanoi and Bangkok. I mean, we didn't meet with anybody from the opposing side. You know, we just met with our ambassadorial staff. And I have to be honest, it took every single bit of my resolve and holding on with both hands to the seat not to get up and throttle those people. You know, because we can do nothing. It's out of our hands. You know,
so then why are they there?
That was exactly my point. Is like, pack your bags, get back to South Africa and start saving the taxpayer some money, because you're a waftam if you're over there and you're not doing anything. Sorry, a waftam is not very polite.
I was wondering, but I didn't want to ask.
Well, you can understand what the F is. That's the easy bit. Waste of time and money.
Yeah.
You know, and so, and these are markets that are absolutely critical for us if we want to grow our economy and create real employment opportunities. And the other aspect that in my view is completely devoid in this country is the ability to understand the quid pro quo opportunity. Because when you're asking for market access, you say, I want to sell blueberries to you. They say, that's fine. We want you to buy our toasters.
Yes.
We don't produce toasters. No brainer. Let's swap. But then they say, if you want to send toasters, we want 30% import duty so that we can create an environment for us to then start producing toasters sometime in the future. Okay, well, we then want 30% for your blueberries so that our people can produce blueberries. Well, you can't produce blueberries in Thailand. Oh, okay, well then, do we need the 30%? You know, all that kind of negotiating
Yes.
and trading and that needs to happen. And I mean, what I understand is that we just, for India, we just gave them mangoes, lychees, and I don't know I can't remember exactly what it is, but we just handed it to them on a plate. No quid pro quo. No, hang on, we need to get the protocol for apples improved, or we need to get access for something else. We just hand it to them on a plate. And I mean, I understand that the USA has applied to South Africa to export or so that you can import blueberries into South Africa.
From the States.
From the States.
Okay.
Which is probably not a bad thing. You know, we do have some supply gaps, so maybe that can be filled by the States. They are in the Northern Hemisphere.
Yeah.
Biggest blueberry producing country in the world. Maybe. No, that will be overtaken by Peru this year. Okay, but I don't think they've even had, so there's no formal approach from government to BerryZA to say, what do you guys think about this? What?
It's just happening without them consulting you at all.
It's happening in some other sphere, in some other realm, but you're not talking to the recognized industry organization that represents blueberry growers or berry growers in South Africa. I mean, how pathetic is that? It's unbelievable, you know, and so we have a completely incapacitated state. And any attempts that the fruit industry, because we have, or they have, I wasn't particularly part of it at the time, and I'm not part of it anymore, but that had people in the embassies dealing with these issues. But because they were then seen to be watchdogging the non-performing governmental employees, they were just sidelined and pushed into a corner and became ineffective, instead of partnering and really driving the process forward to actually achieve the results. Because, I mean, the fruit industry will put people in markets to enable us to get market access. We are that desperate. You know, we can capacitate it, we can fund it, because it has the ability to unlock value in our industries in South Africa.
We've seen it with those Chinese inspections, the live stream inspections we've done. The fruit industries said it must be done now. We will foot the bill. We will make sure it happens.
And navigated and negotiated the way forward.
It's an intergovernmental.
That was with
process.
the Chinese market. But as you say, there's China and then there's the rest of Asia. And so when and how will this happen if we have not got government assistance? It's a massive problem. So
I can't answer that. And it's so tediously slow. Yet if you look at Peru, who's our biggest competitor for blueberries, and you just see what they're able to achieve.
they have their government behind them, helping them, and it's all happening.
And they have I mean, you know, what are we defending here in South Africa? what are we really defending? And that limits our ability to sign free trade agreements, to get market access processes completed. It's just, and I mean, Peru is opening 2 markets a year now for the last 5 years. They just open these markets.
But even up in Africa, African countries are opening up eastern markets quick.
Yeah. Zambia has access for blueberries into China, but that's because China owns.
But through which port?
Well, pass, I don't know. Probably air freight. But, and there's very little blueberries grown in Zambia anyway. There's only a couple of small operations there currently. But, China owns the Zambian electricity power or the power supply system. That's why they need to find a way to balance their payments, or balance their trade. And that's the other irony. South Africa, the only way South Africa can currently balance their trade is in resources and in agricultural products. Because we don't manufacture anything in this country.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. No. And we don't value add anything in this country. Because the environment in which organizations and companies have to flourish is so anti-competitive, or so uncompetitive, not anti-competitive, so uncompetitive. I mean, just had the power go on and off.
Yes. I remember years ago, we used to joke about the Zimbabweans and say, what did they used to have? What did they used to use for light before they used candles? They had electricity. That was a joke. Sadly, it's no longer a joke.
It's not funny. I burned through R1 million worth of diesel in July, and in August, I had to pay my account in the middle of the month because I'd run out of credit limit. I was burning so much diesel to keep this business going, and I have to. I've got 2 commercial pack houses for which I have to keep the lights on because I'm not at liberty to stop. And I mean, it's the labor law is just completely against me as well. I can't have them standing here for 2 hours and not paying it. But it's outside of my control. It's outside of their control, but I have to foot the bill. So I choose to burn through diesel. I don't know. There's the time for industry leaders to use quiet diplomacy to bring about change, in my view, is gone. And I mean, that's why I was prepared to be a very loud noise when it came to the port strike, because I just cannot believe that it's in our interest to just keep quiet anymore.
Everybody's talking about it.
It's got to come to a stop, and industries and business leaders have got to stand up and say, so far and no further. It's
Indeed.
and what I fail to understand is that in the rhetoric they say they support agriculture and that they want to grow agriculture and that agriculture has been the star, yet they are allowing us to be systematically our profitability to be systematically eroded by making it harder and harder for us to do business.
But also, I think they see agriculture as the woman sitting on his dusty farm in a karoo. They don't see that product arriving in a cold container at the harbour as agriculture anymore. Yeah. I think that there's a gap in the, not education is not the right word, but there's a gap in know-how as to where it came from and how it got there and what must happen with it.
I think you're right. I think there's an awareness issue with, the cold chain. Actually, if you want money from overseas, you actually have to make the stuff work.
I mean, we take a lot of visitors through our facilities here. You know, they're interested. You know, for whatever reason, you know, they might be friends and family. They might be suppliers of other products. And when you explain to them the technical detail of what you do here, I mean, apples and pears. Okay, we've got, let's call it 14 varieties. We break those 14 varieties into over 1,000 different derivatives. You know, whether it be size or color or grade, but you know, there's more than 1,000 derivatives.
It's actually quite phenomenal.
Yeah, and so I mean, the complexity of what we do here is massive, and that's in a desire to create value and to distribute that product to more than 80 countries across the world. You know, and to target those derivatives that you make for the people that are going to pay the best money for it, to get the best value back to the farmer at the end of the day.
Without working ports and without market access, you're dead in the water.
Yeah, that you can survive. You know, you can become uber efficient, and credit to my farming guys. They are really one of the best teams, you know, around here. And not just around here, in South Africa as a farming team, these guys are right at the top of their game. And the responsibility for us as business owners and the guys that are in the value chain downstream of them is to support them and make them, you know, able to do better and better, but we have to have a functional, enabling environment in which this thing to go to the next level.
Yeah.
I mean, we can grow. You know,
Yeah.
we can scale what we've got. We can replicate what we've got. We can take people along with us. We can bring new generations of farmers into the business and mentor and lead and teach them to do what we do, because that's what happened to me, and I must do that for the next generation. And that, I'm not talking about my children. I mean, yes, it would be great if it's my children, but if it's other, you know, if it's the next generation of farmers, which will be very different even from my generations of farmers, we will be farming very differently, and we will be able to incorporate vastly different skill sets into agriculture, because it is not, as you say, the oomie sitting on the stoep. It's now proper business with technological advancements, and that really, I mean, we had the what are the technological advancements in agriculture? Irrigation, agrochem, mechanization. Those are the three. And what's next?
Aerobotics.
Yeah, now it's, and yeah.
And then also like the things that aerobotics does, the aerial surveys of
the options is
technical adoption is what's going to get us to the next level, to be able to feed this world.
Yes.
But you've got to have the money, the time, and the ability to go and investigate and experiment and to learn how these things work. But we're just so busy fighting for our existence, you know, to do what should be simple.
So to connect with what you said earlier, that the time has passed where we just take and just have to put up with it. Industry leaders and so on, do you have a suggestion? Do you have any ideas? Have you spoken to anybody? Is there any kind of plan going forward? I know these are difficult questions, but
I don't
we have
know.
our backs to the wall here. But
so I'm going to be careful about what I say, because I obviously have a lot of respect for the Justin Chadwicks, the Anton Rabers, even my colleague Brent, you know, with the greatest respect. You know, those guys are doing what they can.
yeah, they're doing the best they can under the circumstances.
But who's the people with the skin in the game? You know, where are the Justins, the Charles Rousseaus, the Pete Carsten, you know, and I've put my name in that ring very carefully because I'm not even in their league, you know, I'm not. But, you know, the people with the skin in the game need to somehow find a way to collaborate and create voice and to bring about real influence. Because yes, the industry organizations are the mouthpiece for those industries, but do they have the real fire to kind of light a bomb that says, you know, so far and no further? I don't know. You know, are we just going to be a bunch of farmers that sell up our businesses and go and live on the Riviera? I don't know, you know. Because that's the option, huh? You know.
That is the option.
Yeah, but then the next guy sits with the same problem.
Well, but
then it's not you.
Yeah, then
it's not my problem. It's somebody else that has to fight the battles and to carry on suckling. You know, because I mean, I will never give up. I will never give up. But you know, there's some stage where the fight has got to go out, and I'm scared of that moment for myself. You know, when that fight runs out.
Yep. We're starting a tradition with our podcast to try and connect our different guests with each other. And we asked the previous guest for a question for the following guest anonymously. So the question I have for you from this morning's guest
has been answered.
Has almost been answered, but I'm going to ask it to you and see how you respond. How do we remain positive in South Africa with the challenges that we have? That was the question, and I think you've addressed it. So but I'm giving it to you straight on.
I'll tell you how I do it. In my little world here, in Chiltern Farms, Pty Limited, I am going to create I will create a shining beacon of hope for this country.
It's wonderful. And it's wonderful to have people like you who will stand up under very difficult circumstances and say that. Because you know what? The buck has to stop somewhere. And if people like you don't take it forward and don't make it work, where will we be then? So thank goodness for people like you.
Yeah, I mean, it's particularly tough and it's particularly emotive, and I'm out of energy right now.
So we caught you on
I came back on Saturday, and on Wednesday when I was in Asia Fruit Logistica, I got notified of an intention to strike by our labour.
Oy, oy, oy.
I'm employing 1,800 people as we sit here today. And I'm creating a livelihood for 1,800 people. And we have averted the strike at a cost to the company, and we have to move on and carry on. And I will not waver from the vision of a shining beacon of hope, because if we don't have that, we have absolutely nothing.
Well, thank you for us seeing us under difficult circumstances. I'm so sorry that we caught you at a bad moment.
The framework in which we have to operate. I mean, we've got to get labour out of government. Government governs. Business creates business. Labour provides labour. You can't have the three embroiled and entwined with one another, and certainly not in government. And you can't have a government that has a failed ideology. You can't have a mix of ideologies. It's either one or the other. There's no middle road here. There's no. Yes, people have to. We understand the right of labour to protest and to what and to do all of that stuff. No problem. I haven't got any problem with that. But the law can't be vague. And the government must provide an enabling environment that creates the opportunity for entrepreneurs like myself and others to create endless opportunities. Because by God, in the last 10 years, I've taken this business from employing 400 people to 1,800 people. And I mean, and
that's phenomenal.
No, it's incredible, man.
And every one of those people has dependents as well.
Yeah.
So if you go and look at the multiplier of what you as a grower, the people that work for you, and then all the service providers that provide. I mean, if you kill the grower, you kill an entire community.
And
Well, it's like Nick Tyson said the other day. The growers are running a small municipality, actually.
On their farms.
Yeah.
Mm.
Because they've got schools, they've got clinics, they've got creches, they've got...
Yeah, and I mean, we realize that in Africa, for us to be successful, you have to do everything yourself. You basically have to create an organization that is capable of running a world-class business in utter chaos.
Yeah, despite the challenges.
Yeah.
Despite the very, very big challenges.
But one thing that I cannot protect myself from is social unrest. And it is by far the biggest risk to our business. Because if I can't harvest my crop, or for whatever reason there's unhappiness, there could be unhappiness with me, I can't pay more, my back is against the wall.
You could pay more if you don't have to pay R1 million for diesel.
That's true, or R250,000 to break a broken generator. But
To break a broken generator.
to fix a broken generator.
Yeah.
Because it's working so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to maintain my trucks that I got to go 10 k's down a dirt road for the most economically active portion of this little area, yet they choose to tar roads past grain farms that employ 0.01 people per hectare, and I'm employing 3 during the year and 10 during the harvest. Where's the logic behind that? Where's the thinking behind that? Where's the people making conscious decisions about how to facilitate growth and development in this country? It's absent.
Shall I order something stronger from the kitchen?
We will also a bietjie vat vanaand, but
I'm sorry.
No,
I know it's
but-
tough.
but-
I'm
but-
sorry we got here at a time where you are frustrated. But I think it's good. It's good to tell us. It's good to talk about it.
And it's not just in South Africa. The whole world currently is completely upside down.
Yes.
You know, and there's profiteering. I mean, the profiteering by the shipping companies is absolutely
High seas piracy.
Not just the shipping companies, we spoke about it now before we came here. The fertilizer companies and the chemical companies.
There's a lot, yeah.
Yeah, it's
they're just exploiting it.
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, but you know, that's business. That's the opportunities. But you know, if you kill the goose that lays the golden egg, the goose is dead. You know, but and I guess this is where we farmers are so resilient and so unbusiness minded about the way we do things.
Farmer's best year is always next year.
Yeah, but you know, some of it is not unbusiness minded. It's the nature of what we do. You can't make a
You
cow,
have to be tenacious.
you can't make a cow unpregnant. You know, so
No.
and you can't. I mean, I had a conversation with my guys, and I said, guys, how do we turn the orchards off, like the steel mills, you know, take plants out of action? They looked at me as if I was absolutely off my rocker, crazy. But that's the reality. That's what business do. They just say, okay, and we can't. You know, how do we do that? We go and chop down trees. You know, go and take out hectares.
In 2 weeks' time when you get the wage increase, and then it takes 3 years to get back to where it was.
Well, no, it's 10 years to break even. You know, how do we? Oh, we can take the less productive orchards out of.
Somebody still has to chop them down.
That too.
You do, but at the end of the day, you know, those orchards are contributing to what you're doing here. If I take 10 orchards out, I need to take a manager and how do I just take a wedge out of my business? The team that I've spent 20 years building, I take that wedge out. I don't know. Maybe that's where farmers are unbusinessman-like, but, you know, because we don't view it as cut and dried as that.
But on that subject, if to change it around a little bit, if you say that there's some farmers or growers that's unbusinesslike, and a lot of the people we work with on a daily basis is really big businesses, can you see somebody like that bringing in an independent CEO, getting somebody that used to work for a big corporate company and employing them as to run the company, and somebody like you just being a farmer?
Will agriculture go that way? Undoubtedly. I mean, it's already happening. You know, big corporate agriculture is on the go, and I mean, we don't want to do that. We as a business and as a family, we definitely don't want to do that. You know, we want to be a professionally run agricultural business. We don't want to be a corporate business. You know, that's why people come to agriculture. That's why a lot of the people that I've got in my team are here, because they're sick and tired of the way that the corporate world works and how it dog eat dog, you know, completely unfeeling and unemotional, and you know, I can't farm like that, and I can't work with a team like that, you know, because we're real people, you know, we're not machines.
We kind of just fell into the podcast and we started to talk about the big issues. But you've now spoken about we. Who's we? Who's Chiltern Farms?
Sure.
That's where we should have started. But
Oh, then you would have got the tears a lot sooner. Chiltern was founded by my grandfather and my grandmother.
okay,
And
when was that?
1954.
Oh,
Chiltern was started in 1954, established in 1954. And
apple farming business.
yeah, I mean, this farm was it was called Dagbreek then, and it was a sheep farm, but had some peach trees. And so we've been exporting fruit from the very first season that my grandfather started here. I mean, can you imagine exporting peaches from here in 1954?
Incredible.
But he did. You
Yep.
know, and I don't know whether it was 50 or 100 boxes or whatever it was that they exported, but they exported. God knows what they looked like when they got to the other side, but the competition probably wasn't great either.
Someone bought them.
And I mean, so it went, you know, from those days. And I mean, you know, my granddad was a real pioneer and a hard guy. You know, he was as pioneers are. You know,
They have to be tough to make it work.
oh, and worked hard. Jeez, he worked hard. You know, I wasn't around, but my dad's told me how it worked. You know, he was an engineer with Ninham Shan, now Oricon, and so he would, let's just start the day at 5 o'clock in the morning, and he'd get the farm up and running and ready and going, and then he would visit his, let's say from 10 o'clock onwards, he'd be at his engineering sites, and he'd do his site inspections and whatever was required on his engineering sites, and then he'd come home in the late afternoon and check what progress had been made on the farm, etc. Eat dinner, back to the drawing board, quite literally, and do all his engineering drawings up
At
until
night. Sure.
1 o'clock in the morning, and start again the next day at 5.
Wow.
For many years, not just for.
Yeah, and I mean, that didn't go on for a day or two, you know, that went on for the first couple of years. You know, obviously with he had a very accommodating engineering firm that allowed him to do that. But, you know, he built all the dams around here. You know,
I remember you telling me, and I also remember you telling me that you had faith to build a dam during the drought.
Ooh, and aren't I in trouble now?
Oh, really? I didn't mean to go down that road. Sorry.
No, well, I had to sign a letter for the Department of Water and Sanitation today, but yeah, anyway, such is life. One of the dams we repaired was quite well repaired. Let's leave it at that. But yeah, no, we built dams in the drought like crazy people, but haven't they just stood us in unbelievably good stead?
I remember it was full. When I was here in 2020. Yeah. You showed me the dam and you said, I built this in the drought. Everyone thought we were mad. Have faith. The rain came, the dam's full.
Yeah.
But now, sorry to hear that there's a little bit of...
There's a wrinkle in that story now. But yeah, such is life. You know, and so that's how it started. My dad and my granddad didn't have the greatest of relationships, and I was affected by that. But that notwithstanding, I always wanted to be here. You know, it's...
Well, that's always an interesting question, because you might grow up in a farming family, but you still have the choice whether you want to join it or not.
Yeah.
So if it's something you always wanted to do, and here you are.
But did you get into the farm straight after school? Or what?
No, we're not allowed to do that here. Oh. But I committed to my family when I was a late teenager, I guess early varsity, and said, you know, this is what I want to do. You know, I will come to the farm, and I will do what I need to do. And
Would you like us to come back another day?
No. This always gets me, but I made it back to the farm 10 days. Before my grandfather passed away. And while he was still able, we were able to have a very good conversation about the future of the business. And I made a commitment to him that I will continue his legacy and, if possible, pass it on to the next generation.
You want to take a break? You good?
This is kind of par for the course when it comes to this subject. And so that's why I'm here, and that's why I do what I do, because right from the very beginning, it was always like that. And I mean, it's 20 years since Grandpa passed away. Well, it will be 20 years in December next year. 19 years.
So you are committed. You came back. You were with your grandpa, and you committed.
And I mean, I'd love to say I'm unemotional about what we do here, but let's just be.
That's not going to work.
It's an out and out. It would be a lie to myself. It would be a lie to others. But I would say that I'm unemotional about the land. I'm emotional about the business and what Chiltern offers and what Chiltern can do. And, I don't know. I read a lot. Read too much probably, but...
You read all the articles we post. I appreciate that.
And in the last 18 months, I've been struggling with what is the purpose for Chiltern? Why do we exist? Why do we, what is Chiltern? Why is Chiltern here? And what does Chiltern do? And I've distilled it, probably as recently as, in fact, I distilled it on the way back from Madrid. And it's very simple, and that's to keep farmers farming. That is what we've been doing for 3 generations of Mudges. That's what we've been doing. Grandpa did it in the early days, building farms for them, enabling them to create irrigation schemes. That was who he was in the early part of his career in South Africa. And then when he became a farmer, by showing them and proving them, because he was such a pioneer, and he was dwarf, really quite different, and was definitely always an engineer, but the kind of pioneering, crazy stuff that he did, and experimentation and innovation, some of which we still live with today, which is of immense value,
So there's a huge legacy there and that you committed to that, and that you see going on.
But it's of value.
Of course.
It's of such immense
It's invaluable.
Value, and I mean, the stories that people tell me, I experienced my grandfather as a particularly difficult man, but the care and nourishment that he gave to people was really quite something, So while he was a very hard man, he was also a very caring man, and a very, one of the stories that I really love about Grandpa is that when he came here, he was English, and he bought the farm, and he then came and introduced himself to the people on the farm and the manager, etc., etc.
Sorry, if I'm interrupt. Was he in South Africa at that stage already, or
he was? Yes, because he was working for Ninham Shand, and he was based in Cape Town. But when he came here and he bought the farm, and he says, guys, everybody can carry on working here, but from Monday the DOPSIS system is gone. 1954, no more DOP system. Well, on Monday he had one guy left, old Jeremiah, and Jeremiah was the only employee that said, I can work without the DOP system. But on Monday there was nobody, because everybody refused to.
I can imagine.
Yeah, back
it was
then.
Not a popular call, let's put it that way.
No, it wasn't, but it was the right call, and that's, Grandpa just said, there's absolutely no ways I'm going to live with a system and I refuse to perpetuate it. And Jeremiah's descendants still work in this business.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And
That's a story. That's actually a story on its own.
yeah, of course it is.
And there's the beacon of hope. It is there.
Yeah, geez, we've got to polish it so that it shines. Yeah, so that's you know, and my grandfather actually was one of the founder members of the kind of consolidated apple industry, and in fact, my grandfather appointed Anton Rabe. So that's as far back as
Wow.
And Anton's been with.
What's your
Fort
grandpa's
Grove.
Christian name?
John.
Okay, so he was John, and then there was
Johnny.
Nigel, and then
Yeah.
there's you.
And now there's Justin. And his nickname in Vyeboom was Johnny Waterhond, because he was always running around the water channels seeing who's taking all the water. Because in the bad old days when there was a flay here,
Yeah.
then, it was like a sierkoegatte and
Yeah.
all of that stuff. But it was the most amazing sponge, hey? It provided water all year round. But obviously, if your neighbors took too much, then you got nothing.
Well, in the farming community, there's always a thing you can trust your neighbor with your wife, but not with your water. I've heard many stories about watersteel in die middel van die nag. So yes, to watch the water,
Johnny
you got to
Waterhond.
keep your eyes on the water.
And everybody in Vyeboom has a nickname.
Yes.
I've yet to find out what mine is, but I'm sure it'll come out. Yeah. Anyway, so that was Grandpa, and so that commitment is ever fresh. It will never diminish. And so my resolve to do what I have to do here is
That's it.
done.
Yeah. Well,
It doesn't matter how hard it is and how difficult it becomes,
commitment is commitment.
and I will not shy away from it.
Let's talk about something else. Berry industry.
Oh God.
Are you tired on a Friday afternoon?
Yes, ek is op, but it's
Bietjie
fine.
op. What would you like to talk about?
No, we can talk about the berry industry. I can talk about the berry industry.
What made you? I mean, you've outlined your family's history. The choice to start with something different, something like the berry industry, from producing apples. You guys went into berries. Tell us.
It was quite accidental. Frank Spratt, I don't know if you've ever come across Frank Spratt, but he did a stint here when our technical manager of the day, William Bayliss, went on sabbatical, and so he did a year here. And after he finished here, I can't remember if we went indirectly or directly, he went to go and work up at Coromandel, which was Sydney Press's farm.
Where's that? Sorry, help me.
Up near Leidenburg, just outside of Leidenburg.
Okay.
And that was the first place in my mind that grew blueberries in South Africa.
Okay.
And Sydney Press was, of course, ex-Edgar's
Okay.
back then. And, I mean, that farm was a showpiece and the ultimate...
I've heard the name Coromandel now that you mean, but I wasn't sure where it was.
The
Okay.
ultimate example of small fortune farming, because he took all his Edgar's money and pushed it into this farm, and to such an extent that his own children took him to court for squandering their inheritance, which I think is just the best.
Like a ski holiday, spend kids' inheritance.
Yeah, no, my parents are doing that, and good for them.
Yes.
I'll keep working. And Sydney Press was, he had to have one of everything, which included at the time a blueberry farm. And then when we wanted to expand the business, when we got expropriated, we bought Chiltern Farm, and we took in partners, and Frank was one of those partners.
Okay. You got expropriated? What happened?
With the Villiersdorp Dam.
Oh, the dam. Okay. Yeah.
That was
Yeah,
it
I can
nearly
imagine.
killed my grandfather. It
When was that?
Just about undid my father.
When was that?
So I guess in the mid-90s, we finally settled, or Dad finally settled. The legal documents were 20 lever arch files thick, and the bill at the time was R1 million. And because we settled on the steps, everybody pays their own way.
It's lekker om te boer. Fun.
Oh, jeez. I think if Grandpa had been less emotionally attached to the land, but it wasn't just that. It was our staff village. There's Steve Cliff Dam on the picture there behind you of Chiltern, and there where you see between the two dams,
Yes.
that was our staff village.
Sure.
And
Sure.
the law at the time, and I don't know if it still exists, but the way in which you were recompensated for your improvements were at cost of building, or at your initial cost, not at the cost of replacement. And we had 25 3-bedroom houses plus a community centre and it all went under the water.
Is the building still under the water there?
We flattened them.
Ah.
They're now underneath the coal stores, because we used all the building rubble to
Backfill.
as backfilling underneath our coal stores. So they did have a purpose at the end of the day. But when you think about having to replace that, and the cost of replacing that, you don't build a house for 30 years. You build a house for, houses.
They must stay there. They must be there.
They last forever, and so once that investment cost is sunk, it's sunk. But you've got to do it again. It's really hard.
And in this case, it was literally sunk.
It
Sure.
was literally sunk. Anyway,
Sure.
so we took some of the money that we had. We obviously borrowed some more from the bank, and then we started farming on Gelukstrom. And in the early 2000s, when I had just come back to the business, we were, and don't forget, we'd been through hell with the interest rates at 27 going up to nearly 28%, and we
remember
had
that.
borrowings at the time, and we were desperate to sell Gelukstrom so that we could get our head above water again. And the environment was so uncertain, we couldn't get a buyer. And we'd been farming blueberries since the mid-90s, but it was just a little old patch that was kind of a bit of a distraction, little rabbit eyes, and it wasn't.
Yes.
I think we farmed it more for ourselves so that we could eat blueberries, and give them to our friends. But we started working with Trevor McKenzie, I don't know, probably in the early 2000s or maybe just before, and he was actually exporting some of that product to various places.
Eurofruit.
And
Trevor, I remember.
good old Eurofruit. And but with Trevor, we started with the first kind of new generation of Southern Highbush, and in fact, we had planned, because we'd planned to sell Longdown, to sell Gelukstrom, we were going to plant these on Chiltern and Longdown, and thank God we didn't, because Des, my uncle, finally gave up in, I don't know, 2004, whenever it was. He says, you can't be half pregnant. We're either farming this thing or we're not. And so we said, well, because we can't sell it, so we may as well farm it. And so we did. And
So you committed to the soil and started to plant and...
Yeah, and so instead of planting the blueberries, and ripping up functional apple orchards, we planted the blueberries down on Gelukstrom on bare land. And thank God we did, because it's actually the right place to grow blueberries, not here, because it's too close to the mountain, and blueberries don't like rain.
Okay.
And back then, did you plant them straight into the soil?
Yeah, we were, sort of. So the methodology at the time was to dig a furrow, which is and fill it with wood chips. We used to put 200 cubes of wood chip a hectare. 200 cubes, 200,000 cubes.
Yeah.
Truckloads.
A lot.
Truckloads of wood chips. And
Where'd you get all the wood chips from?
No, I mean, there was forestry around here.
Okay.
So, I mean, it was...
Yeah, but obviously that might have been pine or blue gum. It
Yeah, it was
might not have
pine.
been.
Mostly pine.
But is
Mostly
that,
pine.
how was that?
They loved it.
Okay.
They absolutely loved it. And I mean, so we've always been in pots and medium. It's just that it was a soil clay pot in the ground,
Okay.
and the medium was wood chips.
Okay.
And I mean, there's no fine brag, in that we had orchards that delivered 53 tons a hectares of
Sure.
blueberries.
What is the average?
53. Well, the industry in South Africa is probably somewhere around 12
Wow.
At the moment.
at the moment.
Good Lord.
Look, it's not every hectare, and that is just like the complete
So what?
complete
You still
eight-skipper.
managed it?
But we did it. It's like urban legend now, but it was achievable. And in that time, I mean, supply was everything. You just had to have blueberries.
Yes.
And everybody just threw money at you, which was
Yes.
fantastic. But we were able to do that, and so things have obviously moved on. We've obviously evolved, but I mean, since 2005, we've been really investing in our blueberry business. In 2013, we segregated our berry business in terms of management on a farming level from our apple farming business, because we had one farmer farming everything, apples and blueberries, but they're two different personality types that require apple farming and blueberry
Yes,
farming.
I can
But
understand that.
we took an apple farmer and we made him a blueberry farmer, and he's a very good blueberry farmer now. And then and in 2012 we started packing blueberries, and from the outset we commercially packed as well for other growers. So, but don't know if you know Stephen Taylor's farm just up the road here at Melpack, or Melwood, not Melpack. And so we packed their berries from the first season.
Dreammaker?
Yeah, the Dreammaker fruits but the farm itself is Melwood. And
Okay.
yeah, and so it's grown from there, and we continued to invest, and we bought land, and we bought more land so that we could expand our
Close by?
blueberry operation. Yeah, right
Okay.
adjacent. So
Okay, nice.
started off with Gelukstrom, and then we bought Poplar Grove, which is the farm adjacent, and there's maybe somebody that can take decent aerial photographs or can
Maybe.
put these things together for us. Because
So Gelukstrom-
they're long overdue.
We know a guy.
We know a guy. As long as it's not Johan Dempers, because I can't work with him anymore.
Gelukstrom, so geluk means luck. So
Lucky stream.
It started off as you didn't think much of it, and then it turned out to be a good luck.
Yeah, I mean, the serendipitous, it is quite a serendipitous farm, one has to say, in that, because of the way the interest rates, because it was bought as a stone fruit farm.
Okay.
We were going to be the next Mr. Plum Hill here.
Okay.
But, because of interest rates going the way they did, we never actually completed that project. And stone fruit here is a disaster. So thank
Why?
God. I think it's also to do with the rain and,
Okay. Your weather's not good here for stone fruit.
Yeah, I think you need a drier environment for
Okay.
stone fruit. They're quite intolerant to just
Okay.
like berries. And then so we didn't farm there, and then we ended up farming blueberries there.
But if you, I'm curious now, you said that you dug these furrows and you filled them up with wood chips. Now these guys selling pots and medium and ground cover and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, we're into that too. All in.
Okay. But can you still do it the old way?
I don't think so. No. So I mean, what really the benefit of the new kind of pots and medium way, and I'm not saying it is the only answer, but for us it is that the uniformity is just next level. And I mean, when we did our first structure, pots, medium, it was the showcase of the industry. I mean, it was just magnificent.
It was quite magnificent to see.
That photograph with the tunnels, that site, which is, geometrically creates such a beautiful image. But that was like the showpiece. And I mean, it was the biggest of its time and the first of its kind in South Africa. And it was
was that?
5
when
hectares,
when did you
2015.
Put that in 2015?
5 hectares, 100,000 plants. It was just going to be the thing. And it was Snow Chaser, which was a good variety and had lots of promise. And I think we had 0 mortality in that.
Wow. That's phenomenal.
In that investment. I mean, you used to stand at the top there and you look down those tunnels and it was just magnificent. And the uniformity. And that's really the big one on these pots and medium and tissue culture. This really high investment.
Yeah.
But also it comes with a greater degree of certainty. Except we couldn't get those bushes pollinated because we'd approached it. I mean, these are the kind of skoolgelde you pay as a farmer. We approached it with the same kind of chemical regimes as we did farming outside.
Okay.
But of course, they were farmed in a contained environment. No rain, no wind, no sunshine, no direct sunshine. And, what I come to realize now is that we put a product on them that was within normal spec, the whole normal label protocol, everything. But because the breakdown curves were so different and bees are so sensitive to this product, they wouldn't touch those plants. And so we had like a 0 pollination rate.
Oops.
And we had so this showpiece went from being this absolute showpiece to this dog.
And
but then was that on the first season that
they were supposed to carry a crop? There was no crop. So I mean, we built these absolutely beautiful plants, but there was no crop.
So how did you figure that out?
Well, we did a lot of stuff there. We hung shapes, we painted colors, because we just thought that it was disorientation for the bees. The bees couldn't figure out what was going on there.
Especially inside nets or tunnels. That is an issue.
But we'd had the other set of nets, which is you can't see them there down the bottom left-hand corner of Villiersdorp.
Yeah.
And this was taken in preparation. That's where that new 5 hectare tunnel establishment took place. So I mean, these are taken in December 2014, I think.
So, and then, as they say, and then?
And so we took these plants, and I mean, under those other tunnels, the bees were absolutely happy as Larry.
Flat-topped tunnels.
No. Also these hooped structures.
Was it hay-grove tunnels?
Hay-grove tunnels. Okay. And so eventually, our farm manager, and he's brilliant, he took a bush and went and put it in the existing tunnels. And he watched the bees, and they would go, happy, 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 fly around, happy, happy, happy.
They just didn't go to that bush?
They would not touch that plant. They would absolutely not touch that plant.
Why?
Because of the agrochem that we confided.
So it didn't break down as quick.
Oh, it was something you sprayed on the plant that they didn't like.
Yes, but in those super controlled environments, it didn't break down as quick as what it would have done under under other circumstances.
It was. We would have put the confidor on in.
What does confidor do?
No, you mustn't ask packhouse people what agrochemicals do.
It does its magic, okay? Does what it has to do. Okay.
Kills bugs or chochos, one of the two. Or it's
so the next year you obviously didn't use it the next year.
No, we still used it, but we then realized that there's something very different here. And then we dispelled the myth that plastic is actually not great. We took the plastic off, we ripped the plastic off. And we only then used the plastic to protect the crop, not to keep the plants in this hyper-controlled environment. So that's what we did.
So what was the fruit set that when you figured this out?
No, back to normal, 100%. Then we went to 30 plus tons a hectare on that product.
The best way to learn is always the hard way.
Yes, but it's man.
Yes, indeed.
You know, it hurts.
Yes.
Especially seeing as we'd shown everybody
Yes.
that was anybody this fantastic development, because it just looked the business, and then it was a dog, and then it was like.
But then you got it sorted.
It was definitely the uncle in prison nobody talked about.
Love it.
Yeah. So I mean, we've been in berries since the mid-90s. But really, since 2005, we really started with the new genetics, the Southern Highbush, that harvested in the new window, if we can put it that way. And then, you know, we just continued investing. And
so the new genetics that have come in have changed the blueberry industry entirely globally. I mean,
correct.
And 30 years ago, we didn't know what blueberries were. We bought them frozen from the supermarket, and they normally came from North America. You're on a tin.
Or in a muffin.
Yes.
So they were never in a muffin.
So
that's only the last 20 years.
He's younger. Fresh blueberries were not something that we knew. No. It was not something that we knew. And I mean, even when I was here last, about 2 years ago, you were talking about blueberries going from having to go by ship.
Yeah.
From having to go by air to being able to go by ship. So, I mean, that's also massive improvement on the type of varieties that make them tougher so that you can export them by ship. The time that it takes to ship something.
Yeah, they are. I mean, they're more robust. And so, so in terms of the transition of blueberry genetics, so I mean, the first thing that they did was get blueberries into the time slots that were vacant, if we can call it that way. Then they started with size. Everything's most got to be bigger is better, and so they started with size. But size came at a price, and firmness, texture, taste, all were kind of forgotten, or didn't have the appropriate level of focus, or I can't really cast any stones, but the focus was too much towards size and forgetting about the other characteristics,
the other important factors.
And not everybody, and I would say Ridley, who's the breeder of mountain for the MBO program, he was always about taste and flavor. Size was obviously on the list, of course, but always contained that taste and flavor element in taste and taste, flavor, texture was always. I mean, he just eats blueberries. When he walks around a blueberry field testing samples, he's just eating berries the whole time. I don't know how his stomach.
The proof of the pudding is in the eating thereof. I mean, we were in California earlier this year, and we visited blueberry farms, and they had.
We went to a blueberry pack house. The farms were finished harvesting, and the interesting thing was they were packing fruit from California, like right into the season, and then there was a shipment of Peruvian berries in there, and he made us taste the Californian stuff, which was okay.
It didn't look like much, but it tasted good.
And the Peruvian stuff was like beautiful, but it was sour as hell. It wasn't nice.
Was this Dave Jackson?
No.
Somebody Jeff Lamb?
No, I don't.
Yeah, they're just a pack house, and they've got a couple of small orchards. We went to see Family Tree.
That's Dave Jackson.
Yeah,
it was Family Tree.
But the pack house was quiet.
We just saw who was available there.
Yeah.
Well, they told us they've got some investment somewhere in Africa with something, but the guy that told us is from them wasn't sure where.
Yeah, Dave Jackson. They've got something I think going up in Ethiopia, but I don't know enough. But Dave Jackson in Peru is the MBO license holder in Peru.
Okay.
So they have very similar genetics.
But it was interesting that we literally stood there and had the opportunity to taste two different ones. The big ones looked beautiful, but
beautiful bloom, everything.
Very, very sour.
Yeah.
And that was just our experience. So
Look,
it's important.
Peru as a country is a really fantastic place to produce blueberries, and I mean they've demonstrated that. I mean, in 2010, I had more hectares of blueberries than did Peru.
Good heavens.
Yeah. So what the hell have I been doing for the last 20 years? Or the last 12 years? I don't
Circling.
know. Yeah, I mean, but that's exactly it.
Yeah.
You know, South Africa could have been Peru. That's the reality, eh? With the right level of investment and infrastructure and ability to service a market,
And government support.
it could have been South Africa. That for me is that, you know, okay, there's a much north-south alignment between Peru and America, and there's probably Peruvians have been working in America, and you know, but Peruvian companies have moved into that whole thing. There's lots of reasons for that, but just
Somebody saw the gap.
yeah, but it could just as well have been
Yes.
South Africa and South Africa supplying into Europe. Well, okay, but America's a proper blueberry consumption. You know, 3 kilos per capita, you know, per year, whereas you know, in Europe, the most sophisticated or the highest consumption is in the UK, and that's 800 and something grams, I think it is, 860 grams
Per person.
per year.
Yeah. Sure, that's one tub.
Yeah.
Oh, a tub and a half.
Yeah, it's niks, nee?
Yeah.
And Europe, in general, Europe's a big place, but let's just say Europe,
I've got no idea.
26 grams.
Sure.
That's
Well,
the,
you see,
that's the opportunity. You grow
Yeah.
Europe to be the size of, or to the
Britain.
consumption of Britain. We'll never be able to grow enough berries. But you have to drive that consumption.
Yes.
What will drive that consumption?
Well, good quality berries available consistently. That drives repeat purchase.
Do they grow berries, blueberries
They do.
in Europe?
Yes, they do. But
Is it growing?
those ones,
Oh.
you know, they don't get any sunshine, man. How can they taste like anything?
Yes.
You know,
Makes sense.
and
So that's well. She joked that I'm not younger, but I never bought a blueberry because they tasted like crap. The ones that you would buy in the
A long
Checkers
time
or
ago.
something.
Yeah.
It
They were
just
nice.
wasn't nice. If somebody puts blueberry on a cheese platter, it's the thing that stays behind. Nobody ate it.
it's
Because-
a decoration
Yeah.
because it's so expensive. No, so I mean, you know, a lot of work's been done to
It's
work on the
phenomenal,
taste
actually.
and flavour.
It's phenomenal how the industry has grown, how the new varieties have changed perceptions. I mean, let's face it, if you get a tub of blueberries and they're nice, it's one of the easiest things to eat. You don't need a knife, you don't need a spoon, you just throw it in your mouth.
We must actually get Lynelle to organise us some.
But if you-
you'll get some on the farm.
If you get
You can eat as much as you can.
Well, thank you.
Saves me having to try and sell them.
But if you give a person that don't know, if you give them these things that they're crunchy, they taste amazing, it's like a light bulb that goes off.
Yeah.
Same with grapes.
No,
Same
for
with
su-
Yeah.
For sure. And I mean, there's varieties of blueberries now that can match the kind of taste, flavour, and crunch of the best grape. You know, for sure.
Somebody gave us a comment saying that if it wasn't for if the grape industry didn't adapt to cultivars, the blueberry industry would have overtaken it. The consumption.
I don't know. No, I don't think so.
Not necessarily locally, but internationally.
Oh, I think that's going to be a tough one, but
Yeah.
you know, possible. But
The comment was, let me put a sharper point on it. It was the new varieties, the new seedless varieties in table grapes came along at a time where table grapes were really battling against, actually in the European and the UK market, against things like strawberries and other berries, including blueberries.
Yeah.
And that seedlessness, being able to change over to seedless grapes, made the category more appealing again after you had always had to spit the pips. As we always used to joke about the grape industry, the British people didn't want to spit pips anymore. They liked the seedless stuff. So I think that was a comment. The grapes always stood behind the berry industry, but be that as it may, I think the growth in South Africa of the blueberry industry, and I mean the formation of the BerryZA, that's quite an exciting change, and it's quite an exciting progression.
So just to answer the genetics thing in South Africa, it's a double-edged sword, eh? And South Africa has the widest possible range of genetics, wider than any other country in the world.
Are you talking about blueberries?
Yes. Yeah, we've got the box and dice here.
I've heard we've got the best.
We've got everything.
Yeah.
No, we've just got everything.
Oh, okay.
Good, bad, indifferent.
Did they all just come to South Africa, or was it?
Well, it was like, we South Africans are hopeless at working together, and ons maak ons maar kampies, and we had these very three, and it talks to the stories that is Berry South Africa, but we had these three very distinct camps. We had the Eurofruit, the Haygroves, Costas Driscoll's, let's call it Haygrove, and United Exports, and the twain shall meet or mix.
And cards close to your chest like this.
Yeah, and very, very much like that.
And trying to get onto a berry farm to take a photo was like this, near impossible.
Yeah, you didn't know me soon enough. But, and so there was this really intense local competition. And we were looking in the wrong direction, We were so looking in the wrong direction. We should have been watching what's going on elsewhere.
Yes.
Because then maybe that would have galvanized us into action a lot sooner.
Instead of fighting the guy next to you, look across the waters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, South African farmers, we're an independent lot, and we don't like to be told what to do. And it is in our very nature, and I'm no different, so I can't cast any, arrows. But, but that also creates this opportunity for people to bring in more genetics and other genetics. And it's not necessarily better. It's just different or other, or differently aligned. And so we've got we exported 60, 70 varieties this year or last year. Peru, 19.
They've got 19 varieties in total in Peru.
Yeah.
Sure.
Look, they're not going our direction. We need to go there. We need to meet somewhere halfway in between. But remembering that Peru, 80% of their volume is 5 companies.
Oh, wow.
95% of their volume is 20 companies. They have 25 total.
Okay.
That's it.
Sure.
25
companies.
growers, or
25 organizations, growing operations, farming operations.
wow.
So it is a little few players working very well in concert with one another.
Clearly, and again, with their government.
We're 90, and we're definitely not working in concert. And that, that's where Berry South Africa should find its natural territory. And getting the 3 camps into one arena to cooperate and to work collaboratively together to address industry-based problems has been a real challenge,
Are you making headway?
No, I'm winning. No, I'm not. I haven't made
Fantastic.
headway. I do believe we've won that.
Fantastic.
I do believe we've got all the parties now around the table and cooperating. Can it be better? Of course. Can we share more openly? Of course. But, that's something you've got to grow towards. But
Yes.
Having better collaborative approach and at least discourse and to find unity. But by God, was it a battle?
I can well imagine. I heard the expression, they say, getting farmers to work together is like trying to herd cats down a highway.
No, there's a different one. It's trying to load frogs in a wheelbarrow.
Love it. Yes.
You know, one of those, not one of
Flat
those
ones.
steep-sided builders one. We're talking about the flat agricultural number.
Plat alles en 'n plat kruiwa, ja. That's well said.
Anyway, so I do believe we've won that battle.
That's good to know.
But it's
And you have a new CEO?
and Brenton is on board, and I am so eternally grateful. But I mean, you know, the appointment, you know, I go away every December. It's my sanity break. It's my spiritual recharge. If I don't do it, I'm unplayable. I'm unplayable sort of like from the end of January anyway, but at least from the 15th of January to the end of January, I'm at least playable. But, and I came back in January. When did we appoint Brent? Now this year. So I came back in January 2021, and I just said, Berry South Africa must have a CEO. And I'd already been working up to it with the board, and I'd been given the mandate to go and seek out the CEO. And I came back and said, okay, now's the right time. And I received a letter from one of the big players saying, we're out. You know, because of all the shenanigans that went on at the back end of 2020, you know, with all that horrible PBR stuff that went on in the back end of 2020. And so one of the bigger players said, we're out of Berry South Africa. And that was our revenue stream gone or severely disrupted. And I won't employ somebody if I don't have the security to pay their salary at the end of the month, you know. So we couldn't do it, and it took until September to put that thing back together again, and we did. But it took a long time, and a huge investment of time and effort to. And
You're the pioneers of the industry, making these things happen.
At personal cost, you know, and but we did it, and enabled us to appoint Brent. The back end of January 20 this year, and he started on the 1st of April or the 2nd of April in Fruit Logistica in Berlin. That was his first day on the job, was following LZ and I around Fruit Logistica, which was probably one of the best introductions you could have to the wider fruit industry. You know, it's like, is it like this?
Yes.
All the time? No, it's not quite like this all the time.
But Fruit Logistica is something that anybody in the fruit industry should visit at some point.
No, of course you must.
You must see it.
You know, you must go there. But you must go there with a purpose, you know. But yes, if you're in the fruit industry, you should go and at least look, see. But yeah, it should be with a purpose.
So,
because otherwise you're one of those people wandering
Yes.
around the aisles and getting in my way.
yes. And all the different languages and all the different fruit types out there. It's very bewildering. You need to be there for a reason, otherwise you'll get lost.
Your Fruit Logistica in Berlin, you walk about 20 k's a day.
Yes. You see interesting things you hear, and
daunting.
you hear it's like the Tower of Babel, all the different languages.
Yeah,
But
it's good
okay,
fun.
so we started with the challenges. Following the recent strike and the drama and all the rest, I've also seen that you're kind of picking up the pieces and getting on with things. Any comment on that?
Look, I mean, the disruption to our marketing campaign, I don't know if we're actually going to be able to count the cost.
Oh,
Because the disruption to our market, you know, the whole energy crisis, the cost of living crisis, you know, I don't like these guys talking about black swans because it sounds like an excuse to me. You know, it's like, oh, it's a black swan event. We couldn't have done anything.
yes.
But probably we're not far off. That's actually,
All the stuff all happening at the same time.
yeah, it's probably fairly legitimate.
Anthony is ready for you.
He can sit and join in if he wants, or he can wait as he.
We can also give us 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah. So, you know, that was what it was, huh? You know, and it feels that way. And you know, whenever you disrupt a market or you disrupt the campaign, you know, the fallout is,
you don't catch up.
Is significant, and because there's so much differential anyway, you know, are we ever going to be able to count the cost? But I mean, you know, being in Bangkok last week, you know, the market is just so disrupted. I'm going to call it oversupply from Peru, fruit being sent into the market. It can't be covering their costs. You know, it just can't be. You know, their currency, which is obviously linked to the dollar. So, I mean, if you look how the dollar has strengthened to the euro, they've taken a 20% devaluation, and the kind of spot price at the moment for Peruvian blueberries at €3. I can't even produce it for €3. I can, but I mean, you know, it's to deliver it in market from Peru to Europe at €3. It's impossible. You know, it can't be feasible. You know, and you know, you also saw the disruption in Asia, diverting fruit out of China. You know, fruit on offer at $7 a box, $5 a kilo. You know, you know, we can't supply it at that. You know, that's way below cost of production. Packing and packaging is beyond that. So I don't know. You know, so and at a time when more fruit is available from a greater diversity of exporters because of the greater diversity, so I mean of operations, so you know, a less consolidated supply into a disrupted market with many more players is like worse than the deregulation moment that the apple industry went through in the late 90s, early noughties. So yeah, are we going to survive? The resilient will. Those with deep pockets, yeah, hopefully we'll survive. But yeah, it's a very tough place for the blueberry industry, and they always say that nothing changes at the top and nothing changes at the bottom. It's somewhere in between, and hopefully we're now at the bottom and we can start affecting change on the way to the top, because it can't continue like this. We have to have a more positive outlook about what's possible and what's feasible, and we need people to take our hands and walk that journey with us, you know, because, you know, we can't do it alone.
Thank you very, very much for chatting to us. And I mean, you were very honest and you told us how things really are, right at the coalface of having to cope with all the challenges that you're dealing with. We really wish you luck with the future, and we really hope things will turn around. And good luck with continuing to be a shining beacon of hope. I think you already are that. Good luck with keeping that up under the very difficult circumstances.
Yeah, and we hope that what our plan is with this podcast going forward is that it gets to the people that needs to hear the message. That is our
yes.
That is our.
Hopefully you'll edit out the more emotive bits, but you know, those are real. You know,
they are real.
That's where we find ourselves,
yes.
And I mean, you know, October, November, December are just hell months for me, because it's absolutely unrelenting pressure. You know, you've got to close out the apple and pear season. You've got to bring home the berry season. You've got to plan for the next one. You've got to do.
Well, I hope your December break.
Too many things
will
in
not
too
be
little time.
It's you can almost see it already.
Yeah. I know we're going to get there. Of course, we will get there,
Yeah,
And we will
but
charge,
it's tough.
and
we
we'll
understand.
charge the batteries and we'll come out
Good.
fighting in January.
Daar sê.
again.
Where's the farmers met best year? Next year. Daar sê.
Volgende jaar. Jo, kyk hoe mooi is die oes al klaar.
There we go.
And it is. It
Yeah.
looks fantastic. Like it always does.